Hello, welcome to Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. So all of India has been elated, a collective sigh of relief that the 41 trapped workers were finally rescued after 17 long days. All credit to the various agencies who were involved: central government, state government, NDRF, SDRF, the Border Roads Organization, the Army Engineering Corps. There were private players, foreign tunneling experts. Everybody was brought in with one mission, and that was to get these folks out. And most importantly, how can one forget the rat miners who got through the last and most critical phase? Now, instead of celebrating this as yet another example of the prowess that India has managed to acquire in the last 10 to 20 years in disaster management, some folks in the opposition are using this as an opportunity for political point scoring. Could that have not been avoided at a time such as this? But first, the story of the Great Himalayan Rescue.
मैं सबका धन्यवाद करता हूं कि इस बहुत ही कठिन और चुनौतीपूर्ण काम को सभी लोगों ने अपना सहयोग प्रदान किया। हमारे प्रधानमंत्री आदरणीय मोदी जी लगातार इस रेस्क्यू अभियान की हमसे सभी लोगों से लगातार जानकारी करते थे।
मैंने पहले दिन जब आप लोगों से बात की थी, मैंने एक ही चीज़ कही थी, हमारा एक ही लक्ष्य है, इनको सेफ में।
The entire nation has been cheering for the safe return of these 41 workers. Here's what experts are saying as to what could have possibly led to the collapse. One theory is that the collapse section could have had a layer of weak rock, so geological studies are important. The compromised D section may not have been detected during the planning stage itself. Also, it's possible, since this project has been going on for the last 3 years or so, water seepage, particularly after the rainy season, after the monsoon season, there could have been water seepage which could have created a void above the main tunnel structure. The void may have possibly imploded during the construction operation, which moved into this permanent structure phase just before this collapse happened. Now remember, international tunneling experts from around the world, from Australia, from America, were brought in to try and save these 41 trapped workers. So what is the way forward? Number one, a stringent maintenance schedule for structural integrity of all projects, sensors as well as monitoring technology to assess if there's been any structural damage to the structures that have happened after construction began, AI, drones, robotics for efficient inspections, periodic third-party risk assessments. What also happens is in many of these construction projects, because everybody has a vested interest in getting this completed, you need to have independent third-party risk assessment studies, particularly to assess geological factors. And contingency plans and emergency protocols have also need to be put in place for any structural concerns that are detected. Also, training personnel in tunnel management and in emergency response. So all of those points we will be putting to two people who are right up front and center in this rescue operation. They're the two big newsmakers. We'll be playing out their interviews at 9:30 p.m. tonight. The men behind the mission in that sense. Union Minister General Singh was there from day one, and Bhaskar Kulbe is a former advisor to the Prime Minister's office. Both of them will be joining us at 9:30 p.m. those interviews. Nonetheless, while the nation was cheering, a billion eyes was on this rescue effort, all 41 rescued safely. A war of words has now erupted between the centre and the opposition India alliance, which has accused the Prime Minister of trying to hog the credit, while the government maintains it's the Prime Minister who led from the front.
देखिए, एक बात तो मैं जरूर कहूँगा, आपने ठीक कहा, कैबिनेट में उसका विषय भी आया, प्रधानमंत्री जी बहुत भावुक भी थे और एक होल ऑफ गवर्नमेंट या पूरा देश जैसे एक तरह से आप सबकी दुआएं भी साथ में थी और हर तरह के प्रयास एक एक जान बचाने के लिए किया गया। प्रधानमंत्री जी चुनाव प्रचार के दौरान भी दिन में कम से कम 2 बार स्थिति को वहां के मुख्यमंत्री से जानकारी तो लेते थे, अपने पीएमओ के अधिकारी भी वहां पर थे, केंद्र सरकार के डिपार्टमेंट्स के अधिकारी थे, दुनिया भर से जहां से जो भी सहायता ली जा सकती थी वो भी थी। आपको जानकारी देने के लिए दिन में 2 बार प्रेस ब्रीफिंग, एक बार यहां से एक बार उत्तराखंड से भी की जाती थी।
भारतीय जनता पार्टी का एक ही काम है, जीत गए तो उनकी क्रेडिट, हार गए तो दूसरे पर, कुछ दुर्घटना हो जाती तो दूसरे पर और निकल गए तो सब उनका। यही तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी की रणनीति है, यही नीति है।
कल बहुत ही एंजाइटी में हम लोग घंटा पार किया, दिन पार किया, लेकिन राहुल जी, प्रियंका जी सबने डांस कर रहा था तेलंगाना में। 26/11 का समय भी ये लोग ऐसा ही कर रहा था। तो इतना इनसेंसिटिव लीडरशिप देश को कभी नहीं देखा। देश ने जो कांग्रेस का लीडरशिप को जो भी देख रहा है, ये लीडरशिप इतना इनसेंसिटिव है, इतना इनह्यूमन है, जिसका कोई कंपेयर नहीं किया जा सकता है।
परंतु एक यक्ष प्रश्न पिछले 17 दिन से मथता रहा हमको, भारतवासियों को, कि क्या आखिर में काम वही सैकड़ों साल पुरानी रैट की टीम आई जो माइंस में लगती है। हमारा देश चांद पे पहुंच गया है और हम अपने से खड़े हुए 50 मीटर दूर तक 17 दिन नहीं पहुंच पाए।
So for now, the health and safety of the workers is of utmost importance. The Chief Minister, in fact, went to the hospital today. He met with all of the workers who were rescued. He's tweeted on their health status, and that's part of our Motorola India's best 5G smartphone brand's tweet of the day. This is what
Hello, Moto.
This is what Pushkar Dhami tweeted, and I'm going to quote from that tweet. Reached the community health center in Chinliasore, inquired about the well-being of the laborers and gave them a check of amount of 1 lakh rupees for relief. During this time, also met family members of the laborer brothers. During this, the family members of the workers expressed their gratitude to the state administration for taking all out efforts to save these 41 people. Our government stands with the laborers who take the state on the path of development in every situation. And with that, let's get to our big debate tonight. Who is really trivializing or politicizing the Himalayan rescue operation?
Hello, Moto.
All right, joining us on the talking point this evening, Tuin Sinha is national spokesperson of the BJP, Dr. Shama Mohammed, national spokesperson of the Congress Party, CP Rajendran is a geologist, and Atul Sati is a climate activist who's worked extensively there in the hills in Uttarakhand. Let me start with Dr. Shama Mohammed. You had also put out a tweet earlier today saying that now that the workers have been rescued, Mr. Modi will claim all credit, he will hog the limelight. You said that he will go there and try to hog all the limelight. When he went for the World Cup finals, your party ended up calling him a panoti. When he didn't go there, now you're saying he's hogging all the limelight. Why are you intent on politicizing an issue on which the entire nation has heaved a collective sigh of relief that all 41 are safe?
Okay, you must give me some time. We have all have a collective sigh of relief, even me and my own party, that they have come out there safe. the 41 workers. Now, let me tell you the background of this. The Char Dham Highway project is one of Narendra Modi's flagship infrastructure project. Let's understand that. Now, very important is when a tunnel is more than 3 kilometers, which is this particular tunnel, the Silkyara is 4.2 kilometers, you need something called an escape route. And the Modi's Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs dated February 20th, 2018, specially said that there should be an escape passage in this because it's 4.2 kilometers. But when you ask the official at the National Highway Infrastructure Development Corporation, he says that escape tunnel will only be there when it's operation and not when it's constructed. So for me, we didn't have to reach this stage. What we are saying is that why was the escape tunnel not there? Isn't the safety of the workers very important?
But Shama, you didn't say any of this in your tweet. In your tweet this morning, you said Mr. Modi will go to hog all the limelight.
I'm coming to that. So what happens with the Prime Minister is when this accident happened more than 17 days ago, what he needed to do was after a few days, he had to speak, address the nation, address the people, his families and say that, we are with you. We are going to do everything possible to get them out. But what I saw is him in a cricket stadium, getting into the plane and, waving. He never visited places like Manipur. 4 Jawans have been killed, martyred a few days ago, never visited there. But when there is success, my Prime Minister reaches there with the cameras.
Why doesn't he speak? The Prime Minister was busy going to cricket matches and flying the Tejas. Instead, he should have gone to Uttarakhand to be with these workers. He did not make any public statement about these workers and the efforts that are being put in to save these workers. That's the contention from the Congress Party and Dr. Shama Mohammed.
Well, good evening, Zaka. Let me not mince words today. Congress is today a fringe in this country, and the kind of tweet which they had put out yesterday morning, first they should apologize to the nation. They were lampooning the entire disaster, with a caricature of the Prime Minister holding a flag and asking whether this is the reason the laborers have not been, the workers have not been brought out. Is that how a responsible opposition should behave? With the quantum of roads that have been constructed and tunnels that have been constructed by BRO in the last 9.5 years across Arunachal, across Ladakh and across all hilly regions, it would be juvenile for the Congress to think that safety audits are not being, undertaking. It would be juvenile for them to think that we don't take adequate precautions. But despite that,
just now in the last 2 days, the NHAI has announced a complete audit of all tunneling projects that it's undertaking across the country. Just 2 days ago, they made that announcement.
No. Are you trying to say that, no safety measures were being followed in the last 9.5 years? Sometimes accidents happen.
No, you tell me. NHAI has announced it. Why are you asking me? NHAI has announced it.
No. NHAI is not involved with all the projects. BRO is equally involved with most of the projects in the hilly regions. So NHAI,
this project
probably is not involved with this project at all.
By a company called NHIDCL for the National Highways Authority of India.
So NHAI, that is not an NHAI project any which way. NHIDCL is a different entity from NHAI.
No, it's building for an NHAI project. Over here, NHIDCL is the company, the infrastructure construction company that was building for what was an NHAI project.
No, the construction over here was being carried out by NHIDCL, which is an independent entity within the MORTH, within the Ministry for Road Transport and Highways.
Okay.
Let us not deviate from the moot point over here. What we have achieved in the last 17 days is nothing short of extraordinary. 17 different agencies was seamlessly being coordinated by the top office. The Prime Minister was personally supervising it. 3 top officials, which included the Principal Secretary, which included a Minister, were personally parking there. Were personally parked there.
Okay.
The Prime Minister attending rallies or the Prime Minister attending the cricket final, how does it impact the rescue operations?
Okay.
In the last 9.5 years,
to that,
the government
before I go to Atul Sati and to CP Rajendran, the point is 650 people from 16 different agencies were involved. SDRF, NDRF, state government agencies, central government agencies, private players were brought in, foreign experts were brought in. Like Tuin said, the principal secretary to the Prime Minister, arguably the most powerful bureaucrat in the country, was there, camped in for a couple of days. The former PMO advisor, senior advisor, was there. A union minister, General Singh, was there. I'll be speaking to both of them in the latter part of this program. Surely that coordination of various government departments and agencies could not have been done unless it was led from the top, unless it was coming from the highest echelons of government.
Every Tom, Dick and Harry can be there. Every Tom, Dick and Harry can be there, Zaka. But at the end of the day, the question arises is, why was that escape tunnel not there? Number two, why did the Prime Minister not release a statement? And I'm asking you this question again and again. He could have just said that, you know what, I'm with the people who are there. Why doesn't he do it? Why do we need to have another Morbi Bridge disaster? Why did we have to have this in the first place? And also, let me put one more point in. There were no safety equipments. You know, there were no safety gears for this. These are all what is coming out from the audit and what the people are saying over there. So the question arises that the Prime Minister of India, whenever there is something, some sort of disaster, keeps mum till there is success. I've given the example of Manipur, which he has not stepped in. My leader Rahul Gandhi was there. The Jawans who have been martyred, he has not gone there. And one last point.
Shama, you and your party were going after the Prime Minister, saying he went for the final, and that's why India lost. You called him Panoti and all kinds of names. Mamata Banerjee called him Papi and so on. So, damned if he does and damned if he doesn't.
See, Panoti was called by the people, the Janta of India. All right, let's understand that. It started out from there. One very important point. 26/11 happened. We were fighting terrorists. I still remember. Hemant Karkare was martyred, but a CM of Gujarat was standing in front of the hotel, abusing Manmohan Singh, abusing UPA, and putting out posters with blood, that we have blood on our hands.
No,
is that justified?
That is not material to the current debate. Let me go to the experts.
Material.
CP Rajendran is also there, and Atul Sati is also there with us.
Zaka, can I quickly respond?
Yeah, 1 second, and I'll come back to you. Let me ask CP Rajendran. You know, while we're all, like I said, heaving a collective sigh of relief, the entire nation was praying for the safe escape, the safe rescue of these 41 workers, and that has happened. But now I think we need to ask some pertinent questions, and one of which is, in ecologically fragile places like Uttarkashi, you know, should we have a reassessment, a re-look at some of these mass infrastructure projects? You also have to balance that out with the fact that, you know, tens of millions of people are traveling for religious pilgrimages, they're traveling for tourism purposes, and our infrastructure needs to keep pace with that. So how do you balance out the two? Mr. Rajendran.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. You know, I here to be as a subject expert here, so I don't want to get into all this political bickerings and all that. So I want to stick to my argument that, you know, we need infrastructural projects all over the country, including the Himalaya. But the question is, you know, we also need to understand that environmental security is also very important. So this is where I think we have failed to, you know, measure up to the expectations of the current expectations, especially in the background of climate change and number of UN resolutions to which India is a party. So here the question is, you know, when you get into the Himalayan terrain, what we have to understand is that this is a very tectonically sensitive, environmentally sensitive area.
Yeah.
So when you come up with huge infrastructural projects, we need to be careful that it doesn't interfere with into the nature's sphere of activities, because that is its own momentum which we shouldn't disturb. And if you can look back and see, there is a series of mishaps and disasters that has happened all along the Himalayan arc, and that applies to Himachal, that applies to Uttarakhand, and recently a few months ago just in Sikkim. So this has been a sequence of happen, and most of these things are related
to... If I may, Mr. Rajendran, you know, I spoke to General Singh. I'll play out that interview in the latter half of this program. One of the things he said was, you know, it was not like construction on this project began yesterday or day before. The construction on this project began 3.5 years ago, and the construction was going fine until this incident happened. What he said was it was not the tunneling technique or the tunneling experts who were involved in this which fell short, but the geological studies, and you're a geologist, so you very well know this. It's not like the geological study can be conducted at the start of this project and then forget about it. The geology changes. So his contention was that we perhaps need to invest a lot more in geological studies in ongoing projects, whether it's 6 months or every year. I don't know what the frequency is, but he says that was more the reason why this tunnel collapsed, and not so much the tunneling technique or the engineers who are involved in that. In fact, he even gave the example of the gentleman who came from Australia, Arnold Dix. I believe he's the head of the International Micro Tunneling Association, and he has not found any structural flaws with this project.
I fail to understand this point, because the whole thing started several years ago, and and it is very clear from the studies that there is a large increase, a very huge, exponential increase in the landslides ever since this whole Char Dham project is being executed. The reason for this is we are actually going for a very wide road, which is not sustainable in a terrain like that. And the question here is, when you mentioned that, someone has mentioned about the geological studies. Yes, geological studies is part of the environmental assessment. And the question again, you need to ask that person is why this Char Dham project, including the tunneling part of it, has been executed without even doing an environmental assessment studies.
Okay. I'll ask Tuhin that in a moment, but Atul Sati has also been waiting quite patiently. Atul Sati, like I said earlier in my question to Mr. Rajendran as well, you have to balance out the fact that people are traveling much more for whatever reasons, tourism reasons, religious pilgrimage, whatever reasons. I mean, look at the last summer. I live in Delhi, in the National Capital Region. There were record number of people who traveled in the summer to the hills in Himachal Pradesh, in Uttarakhand. Now, the point is your infrastructure has to keep pace with that. And yet at the same time, there is of course the very real danger that these mass infrastructure projects, may be threatening the very fragile ecology of that region, and nature is what nature is. I mean, she takes back something that's been forcibly taken away from her. So my point is, how does one balance both?
देखिए, अभी तो कोई बैलेंस की बात हो नहीं रही है. अभी तो जो है एक तरफा सब चल रहा है, और जिस तरह का निर्माण पूरे हिमालय में और खास तौर पर उत्तराखंड में हो रहा है, ये तो कहीं बैलेंसिंग नहीं है. और अभी जैसे राजेंद्रन साहब कह रहे थे, ये जो पूरा प्रोजेक्ट है, इसमें तो जो है EIA तक नहीं किया गया. वो पूरे नॉर्म्स, वो पूरे लॉज जिनको पालन किया जाना चाहिए, उनके धज्जियां उड़ाई गई. और पूरे प्रोजेक्ट को जो है, ताकि EIA न करनी पड़े, जन सुनवाई न करनी पड़े, पब्लिक हियरिंग न करनी पड़े, तो उन्होंने इस पूरे प्रोजेक्ट को, जो कि 890 किलोमीटर का एक ही प्रोजेक्ट है, उसको 53 पार्ट्स में बांट दिया, 53 अलग अलग हिस्सों में बांट दिया. और ये सिर्फ इस प्रोजेक्ट के साथ नहीं है, यहाँ जितने हाइड्रो पावर प्रोजेक्ट चल रहे हैं, बाकी जो प्रोजेक्ट चल रहे हैं, सब में इसी तरह नॉर्म्स के खिलाफ जा करके, नियम कानूनों का वो धता बता करके किया जा रहा है. तो यहाँ तो बैलेंस की बात नहीं है. अगर आप देखें कि यही जो 4 धाम का प्रोजेक्ट है, और जो आप कह रहे हैं कि बहुत सारे यात्री, बहुत सारे पर्यटक यहाँ आ रहे हैं, तो आप देखिएगा कि इसी सीजन में 50 लाख लोगों की दावा किया जा रहा है कि आए, और पूरे सीजन में लगातार लोग जाम में फंसे रहे. क्यों फंसे रहे? कि सड़क जरूर चौड़ी हो रही है, लेकिन उसके साथ साथ कहीं कोई पार्किंग की व्यवस्था नहीं है, बाकी मैनेजमेंट नहीं है. तो केवल एक तरफा विकास का आप ढांचा खड़ा कर देंगे तो इससे बैलेंस बनेगा नहीं. और आपने बिल्कुल ठीक कहा कि जो है प्रकृति अपना उससे बदला लेगी, और ये विज्ञान की सच्चाई है कि टाइटैनिक तो डूबेगा. तो अगर आप जो है एक तरफा इस तरह का काम करेंगे तो निश्चित तौर पर इसके दुष्परिणाम सामने आएंगे. हिमालय जो है बहुत समय से जो है बड़े भूकंप की प्रतीक्षा में है, और ये वैज्ञानिक कह रहे हैं कि कुछ सालों में एक बड़ा भूकंप यहाँ आ सकता है. वैसी स्थिति में जबकि ये टनल अगर बन गई होती, आप ये अनुमान लगाइए, और इसके अलावा रेलवे की पूरी सुरंग बन रही है, पूरा 90% जो है उसमें वो कर्णप्रयाग तक जो ट्रेन आ रही है वो सुरंग में है. तो तो अगर ये सब बन जाता और तब ये घटना होती है, 100-150 गाड़ियां वहां सुरंग के अंदर होती, तब हम क्या कर रहे होते। इसलिए हमको इस पर दोबारा सोचने की जरूरत है। गडकरी साहब ने खुद कहा है कि हमको इसको असेसमेंट करना पड़ेगा, दोबारा से रीथिंकिंग की जरूरत है, और न सिर्फ इस प्रोजेक्ट पर बल्कि पूरे ही हिमालय क्षेत्र में हम जिस तरह का विकास कर रहे हैं उस पर दोबारा से सोचे जाने की जरूरत है।
किया था कि NHAI ने बोला है 2 दिन पहले कि सारे जो टनलिंग प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं उसके असेसमेंट होंगे, बट to respond to what
Mr. Gadkari himself said that,
to what Mr. Sati has said and also what Mr. Rajendran has said, that the environmental impact assessment EIA is a study that is done for all large infrastructure projects in this country. In the case of the Char Dham project, it's about 850 kilometers. Because it's been divided into multiple parts, the EIA has been done away with, and perhaps, you should take a re-look at it because of this accident. We also had, I think there was an NTPC project some years ago where, again, workers were stuck inside a tunnel, it got flooded. There have been numerous both man-made and natural mishaps in the hills in the last few years, which only warrants that we be as safe as possible to him.
Construction, Zaka, construction of infrastructure in hilly regions is always a challenge, but at the same time, zero infrastructure creation cannot be the answer. We have seen infrastructure creation in difficult terrain of Ladakh across Northeast. I do understand, the ecological dangers over here are graver, and rest assured the government is completely abreast of it. You have already had a statement from Honorable Minister for Road Transport and Highways, and all safeguards will be taken in future to ensure that whatever the dangers are minimized. Like I said, zero construction is not the answer because, those regions cannot remain 50 years behind the rest of the country. But at the same time, whatever safeguards need to be taken, and I would go with the tunnel expert from Australia, his assessment that in this particular project, there was structurally, he could not find anything wrong. Having said that, like I said, this is a government which has been extremely sensitive towards saving lives. I don't need to reiterate it. Whether it has been Operation Dost, Operation Kaveri, Operation, all the international operations. So we are very cognizant of the need to save lives, and all precautions will be taken in future.
So Shama Mohammed, that is something that even the Congress party has to concede, that whether it is Indians who are stuck in Ukraine or in Yemen, or now Indians who are stuck in a tunnel in Uttarkashi, the message that has gone from the highest echelons of government is that we will not leave one person behind, not one life needs to be lost. Wherever Indians are in distress, the government will go all out to rescue them. At least that much you will concede?
Well, Zaka, during our time also, there was people stuck in Kuwait. I was there myself. I was airlifted out of Jordan. I traveled from Kuwait to Iraq and from Iraq to Amman. I was airlifted out, taken to Bombay, taken by train. I got home, no sort of advertisements, whoever the government at that point of time was. This is my personal story. After that, during the UPS time, we had Lebanon, where we again airlifted people out. No big story out of that. So we have done our bit too. We don't advertise. What I have is, we are all very happy what has happened today, very thankful to God. But the Prime Minister of India, I want to just tell him that let's not have these photo ops. Be considerate, speak to the people. Even Manipur, nothing. After that, not a single word. We are asking him to be sympathetic and show empathy to the people of this country. Only when you have victory, don't be there. When our wrestlers were protesting, again he was quiet. So what I see in the Prime Minister of India is, when we have a Balakot success, he's there with the soldiers. But when our soldiers are martyred, I don't see the Prime Minister anywhere.
In that phone call that happened, the lead person, once again, the lead person who's speaking to the Prime Minister is the leader of that group. He's from Bihar, and there is a conversation of him with his relatives, with his father, I think, which has now gone viral on the internet, where he's saying, the reason why we are out and the reason why we've been rescued is because of the efforts of the central government and of Prime Minister Modi. The state government did nothing for us. In this instance, since he's from Bihar, he's saying that the Bihar government did not do anything for him.
But can the Bihar government, no, this is a disaster, national disaster. So what can the Bihar government do here? It is the duty of the Prime Minister of India. One. Number two, I'm again saying, we know what happened in Joshimath. Let's understand that there is indiscriminate and illegal building happening right now. We can't go on with this sort of construction in the hills. We need to have strict guidelines on constructions there. Joshimath happened recently. We know what is happening in the Uttarkashi region. So why are we not taking precautions?
Okay.
I mean, this is very
Tuhin,
important for all India.
quick response. We saw what happened in Joshimath. There were buildings that collapsed, there were cracks that appeared on the ground. Surely these are all warning signs. Nature is telling you.
No, Zaka, I understand these are worrying signs, but this is not happening overnight. There is a history to it. The Congress wants the country to believe that it is happening because of Prime Minister Modi. That is not the truth. In fact, the way we responded to the Joshimath situation, I think, again, we showed exemplary promptness. We have seen the Congress era. What were the rescue missions at that point of time? In 1984, their first priority was to please don't interfere in between. Their rescue mission was to rescue Warren Anderson. After 26/11, they took 14 hours to respond to 26/11 terror attack. We have seen the response during the Kedarnath flood. So I don't think the Congress should even be speaking about it. The Kedarnath, the flooding happened in 2013. Was our government in place?
Okay.
So,
Atul Sati wanted to come in. I think he wanted to make a point on the Joshimath
They were not aware of these
signals.
dangers.
Atul Sati. आप कुछ कहना चाह रहे थे आप?
मैं इतना कहना चाह रहा हूं कि जोशीमठ के बारे में जो कह रहे हैं, तो मैं जोशीमठ में ही बैठा हूं और जो है पिछले साल भर से 2 साल से हमारी लड़ाई है और अभी तक जोशीमठ में लोगों का विस्थापन पुनर्वास की कोई योजना नहीं है, कोई नीति नहीं है। केंद्र सरकार ने भले ही पैसा दे दिया है, लेकिन वो पैसा जमीन पर खर्च नहीं हो रहा है। अभी तक जोशीमठ के पुनर्स्थापन, उसके स्टेबलाइजेशन के लिए कोई डीपीआर नहीं बनी है, कोई योजना नहीं है और इस बरसात में ही जो है वो दोबारा से स्लाइडिंग हुआ है, दोबारा से खिसका है, सबसाइड हुआ है और आगे और ज्यादा अभी बर्फबारी का सीजन शुरू होने वाला है। उसके बाद और सारे लोग
I'll give Mr. Rajendran the final word. I'm going to wrap up in a minute.
By the Prime Minister of India.
CP Rajendran, thank you.
Yeah, there was a mentioning about the development. I mean, nobody says that there should be zero development in the Himalaya. The expert committees suggested that you reduce the width of the road. I mean, that was the expert committee recommendation, and it was rejected. And they went for this wide road, with a 12-meter width, and that is what is a problem here. Secondly, the national security as well as the environmental security, both are important. So when you say that army has to move, army cannot move on a disaster-prone road. So this is a whole problem here. Nobody says there should not be any development.
Okay, no, I think the national security concern is on, the Ladakh side, the Arunachal side, where you need, wider roads for the army to get to those conflict points, if at all a conflict arises. This, of course, in the hills in Uttarakhand, that's a separate matter altogether. We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much to all our guests. I've got to wrap up. I'm completely out of time. But as promised, on the other side, in fact, in just a moment, right after this placard, I'll be speaking to the men behind this great Himalayan rescue. One of them was Union Minister General Singh. He's become a go-to rescue man for the government, whether it's in Yemen, whether it's in Ukraine, or now for the trapped laborers in Uttarkashi, and also to Dr. Bhaskar Kulbe, who was also there, camped out at Ground Zero for the last 17 days. He's a former advisor to the PMO.
Hello, Moto.
General Singh is Minister of State for Road Transport and Highways, and he was leading his team for the last 17 days there in Uttarkashi. Thank you very much. First of all, General Singh, many congratulations to you and your team. You've been leading this team of 600 people plus for the last 17 days. The entire country was riveted to this rescue operation of these 41 workers. A lot of obstacles came your way. The machine breaking, you had to do manual rigging in the last stretch. How did you keep the entire team, disparate agencies from central government, state government, private agencies were involved as well. How did you keep that entire team motivated through all of these last 17 days?
See, right through, I would like to actually assure you that most of the motivation came from the Prime Minister, who was monitoring it on daily basis, both morning and evening. And if you look at his schedule, which is there for the last 17 days, you will find he was constantly busy. yet he found time to monitor. And that was the motivation for all of us who were working at the site. I mean, you were motivated because there is somebody who is, despite all the busy hours, busy minutes, is monitoring. So it became a greater responsibility on us to ensure that everyone who was working remains motivated to achieve the task.
So when these obstacles came, and I think the biggest crisis was what happened last Saturday when the auger machine, the auger drill broke, and then you had to manually send in people to try and remove the debris, and then of course the last stretch had to be manually dug. Did you at any point in these last 17 days feel that this might not happen, or that this is too much of an obstacle to overcome, particularly in that last stretch when the machine broke and you had to complete that last stretch manually?
See, it is like this. Second day we started using the auger, and that was the auger from the irrigation department. It didn't have enough power to go through the type of material that was there, and it had to be abandoned. Then we got a machine lifted from Nazafgarh, which was a very powerful machine. We started with it, good progress, and then we the auger hit the metal plates which had dropped from top. In fact, it hit the lattice girder which had dropped from top. What happens is, in this case, with the rubble out there, you actually don't know what you are going to hit at a particular period of time. Rock, it would have gone through. It was able to actually break a very hard rock, but where metal is concerned, it becomes much more difficult. And that is where it was not that the auger was damaged, but the auger stopped because the pipes went around it, stopping all the movement of the auger. So we had to pull it out, cut those pipes out, redo it, refit another length of the auger so that the fins which had got damaged because of all this pressure that was applied, that could be used. Second time again it happened. So those were very crucial moments for us as to what exactly has to be done. So there was vertical drilling that had started.
Yeah.
We had micro tunneling that was taking place. Resources were coming for a horizontal tunnel from another direction that would link into this portion of almost kilometer and a half that was there. All those options were started.
Yeah.
In our mind, we were very clear that we have reached a particular length because of the auger. So we will see as to how best to proceed with it, whether it is use of auger or we do manual, but that was the best option available to us, and ultimately we were proved to be right.
I want to talk about that last stretch which you said had to be undertaken manually. Manual drilling, manual digging had to be done, and some of these rat miners had to be brought in for that. We spoke to some of them. What would you say about the kind of work that they have done in that last stretch? I think they asked you time for 36 hours, but they completed within 26, 27 hours. Also, it's not a profession that is particularly highly looked upon. In fact, in some parts of India, it's even outlawed. You're not allowed to mine with your bare hands. The way they managed that last stretch, what would you say about that?
They are used to this kind of work, and we had to use them because, and they were very confident. Let me assure you this, extremely confident. They said we will be able to get through. And although normally they say the speed is very slow, yes, it is slow, especially in a tunnel where a lot of metal has dropped from the roofing, which needs to be cut. Then only they can proceed.
Yeah.
But ultimately, last 7 meters, they were able to do it pretty fast because we didn't, except for one place, we did not strike much of metal. And that piece of, by then the morale was very high, the morale of our welders was very high who were cutting the iron pieces, and we were able to make a breakthrough.
You know, I said this at the top in the introduction as well, that whether it is stranded Indians in Ukraine or whether it is in Yemen, and now of course these stranded workers in Uttarkashi, you have been at the forefront of all these rescue operations. You've become some kind of a go-to rescue man for India. But more than that, India has also been pitching for a while now this idea of an international coalition for disaster management. Do you think that idea is a time that has come now? And therefore, what are the lessons that India can offer to the world, not just from what we saw in these last 17 days, but these various disaster management missions that you have undertaken in the last 10 years?
We have learnt our lessons very well. And one thing which our Prime Minister laid down right in 2014, and that has been followed, that no matter where you are in the world, if you get stuck, if you are in trouble, the government will ensure that we can take you out. Now, same thing was for the tunnel. We had the resources. It required, with so many agencies working, it required management and coordination. And this was a matter concerning the Ministry of Road, Highways and Transport. So we had Gadkari ji, checking what is happening every day, what more can be done. We had our Secretary Moth, who was present with me on the ground, taking decisions which resources have to come from where. We had a team from PMO so that coordination can be done. So this coordination and the type of directions that you flow from the top are the biggest lessons. If the directions are clear, if you know somebody is concerned, automatically things start happening.
And since you're connected with the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, and this project was being undertaken by these workers for the ministry, and an audit, I believe, has been issued for all tunnel projects. What can you tell us in terms of what this incident has taught you when it comes to such large infrastructure projects, particularly in ecologically sensitive zones like Uttarkashi?
Let me assure you, technologically, whatever techniques we are using are good techniques. They are the techniques which are also approved by the International Tunneling Organization, whose head, Arnold Dix, was at the site. Our problem is our geology. What can succeed elsewhere may not succeed with the type of geology that we have. Even in this particular case, this particular area where the fault took place, for almost, one can say, 3.5 to 4 years, this area was absolutely stable. It is when they started doing a permanent work on it that it just came down. Geology needs a greater study, and this is a lesson that we have already taken. And when we carry out, feedback from all other agencies who were there, as well as what our experience has been, we will come out with a suitable thing which will ensure that tunneling is not only safe, but in case something happens, we are able to do things better.
All right, General V.K. Singh, as always, a pleasure speaking with you, and many, many congratulations to you and your team for leading this rescue effort. Thank you for speaking with us. Joining us now is one of the persons who was closely involved in this rescue operation. He was camped out for the last 17 days at the rescue site. Bhaskar Kulbe is a former senior advisor to the Prime Minister's office. Thank you very much, Mr. Kulbe. First of all, many congratulations to you and your team. Can I start off by asking you to describe the events of the last 17 days? There were many twists and turns, many obstacles that came along your way. Tell us how you and your team managed to navigate these obstacles, these difficulties for these last 17 days, and how did you keep hope high that yes, they can be rescued despite the odds?
Everyone saw it throughout this mission journey that it was a difficult task. There were many challenges, some foreseen, some unforeseen, but all along we had this conviction that it was not insurmountable, because the primary guiding factor was the strength, the commitment and the resilience that these 41 worker brothers showed whenever we spoke to them. I mean, they were even willing to do their part of job from that side, although they knew that the situation there was precarious, debris was sliding, and there was great risk of their injuring themselves while doing so. So we realized that if those people who are there inside without knowing when it is day, when it is night. They have no comfort to sleep, and they have no food to eat in the initial 2 days. We realized that we had to pull up our energies together and work synergistically to get them out as soon as possible. Now, as you know, during the entire mission, there were some technological hiccups that we could not foresee. But again, the help that came from all corners. I would lose time in naming each of those organizations,
Yeah.
be it private, be it government, be it non-government, be it individuals. It was enormous contribution that all of them did.
650 people from different agencies belonging to different governments, some from the central government, some from the state government, SDRF, NDRF, the Border Roads Organization, NHIDCL, the company that these workers were working for, the project that they were engaged in. You had the engineering corps of the army. Now, usually it is said that government here in India is very slow in moving, but in this instance, various departments belonging to different government departments were brought together. Can you tell us what it took to bring together this whole of government approach and how that was what cracked it? Ultimately, like you said, whether it was people in different governments or in non-governments or in the private sector, there are about 600 people in all who were involved in this rescue effort.
No, I think everyone understood that in this entire mission, time was of utmost essence. And they pooled their own resources to reach wherever they were called to, be it the plasma cutters from Hyderabad, the laser cutting unit from Pune, the ONGC plasma cutter from Rajamundry, the Simfer from Roorkee, or even the private agency which brought the LiDAR that gave us the entire clarity on where we were, what we were doing. I think all of them understood that if at all, there was no time to lose in this entire exercise.
One of the things that used to be said, and not so long ago in India, was that life is very cheap, whether it's train accidents, people dying in cyclones. But in the last decade or so, whether it is Indians who are trapped in Ukraine or Yemen, or now these Indians, these 41 workers who are trapped in a tunnel in Uttarkashi, the government seems to be going out of its way to ensure that no one is left behind, that no life is lost. What would you attribute this change in philosophy to?
No, I think we have understood in these many years that we have traversed our life's journey that the biggest asset is life, and it has value, be it of a worker on the cutting edge, be it of someone working in the office, or being it someone at the highest echelon. And that is what is most precious, and that is what counts. And I think it is seen in the entire work that all of us have been doing in last so many years.
And just a word, Mr. Kulbe, about how this entire rescue effort was being monitored from the top on a daily basis. The Prime Minister was speaking either to the Chief Minister or to yourself or to members of his team who are on the ground on an everyday basis. Could you just walk us through what were the directions that you got from the Prime Minister and from the Prime Minister's office in helping navigate this rescue effort?
No, I think it was the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister which guided all of us to work in that singular pursuit, that work smoothly, work calmly, but reach the completion of the mission successfully and bring out the trapped laborer brothers as quickly as possible. And it is evident that not only was he in dialogue with the Chief Minister every day, he deputed the Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, Dr. Mishra, Home Secretary, and one of the additional secretaries, Hariranjan Rao, to just tell us when it was very crucial because we were close to completion of the mission, yet we were finding hurdles. And as you know, Dr. Mishra, the Principal Secretary, has been someone who knows disaster management like the back of his palm.
Yeah.
And he was here. He guided us very calmly in his own unruffled manner. He told us what all we were supposed to do. And he only told me when he was leaving back for Delhi, Bhaskar, no time to lose.
So clearly no time to lose. For the last 17 days, you and your team have been working relentlessly, and the singular objective was to try and get these men out alive, get them out safe. You're in a post-retirement phase of your life. I'm sure you least expected to find yourself once again back at the center of all the attention, a billion prayers for the safety of these 41 workers. What are the lessons that you and your team have learned in these last 17 days?
First lesson is that work together in singular pursuit of what you have been assigned. And remember that time is a big resource that you should not fritter away. And the second is that when it comes to combining technology with human endeavors, you cannot single out what is more important.
Okay, Mr. Kulbe, thank you very much. Wise words that time is of essence for someone who is in the golden phase of your life. I think that's a lesson for all of us.
Empathy in the process. In the Silkyara tunnel rescue, right from the NDRF of the center to the state rescue agencies, the international drilling experts, the local rat mining laborers, whom most had forgotten about, all of them together played a very, very key role. Well, it was yet another example of how during any crisis or calamity, this whole of the government approach and getting into this mission mode, doing all possible help the government can to provide for a coordinated, a mission focused strategy, all of this comes into play. Mr. Modi was in direct touch with all the stakeholders at multiple levels, even during his travel and busy schedule. A key decision, in fact, what officials say, was a landline facility set up by the BSNL with a handset given to the workers trapped inside the partially collapsed tunnel so that communication could happen. Mr. Shehzad Poonawala, the BJP spokesperson I just spoke to, he in fact said that the entire Uttarakhand episode demonstrates yet again that when it comes to PM Modi, he will leave no stone unturned to ensure the safety of any Indian, whether that Indian is stuck in a tunnel inside a mountain or Indians trapped abroad on foreign soil in Ukraine or Afghanistan. In fact, 17 plus agencies we are learning now were included in this entire rescue effort, include the PMO, the CMO, the Indian Air Force, the NDRF, the BRO, the ONGC, the SDRF, the NDMA, SDMA, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, Railways. Everybody played a role together in this Uttarkashi rescue incident. As Mr. Poonawala said, the Manushya, Machine and Mahadev, all three were invoked to get these 41 laborers safely out of the tunnel. What are the key factors, if you explain to them, if to our viewers, what are the key factors done by the Modi government that have worked? Well, the hallmark of this government has been, as I said, to work in a mission mode during the time of crisis, mobilizing all available resources and departments to work towards a common goal. Well, this approach ensures that the government response is not just swift and efficient, it is also effective. PM's direct and personal involvement in such crisis management helps immensely. He is in regular touch with the stakeholders, often sends his trusted ministers on the ground. The involvement of top ministers directly on the ground helps because this leads to a hands-on approach. It helps in better coordination, quicker decision making, clear decision making. The Modi government in this respect seems to have learned its lessons from the missteps in earlier regimes like during the 26/11 attacks, when we saw in Mumbai there was lack of coordination between government agencies, led to delayed responses. I remember the NSG reaching late Mumbai due to non-coordination between government agencies. There was breaches like the live telecast of operation details, in fact. But under the Modi government, we've seen a starkly different approach. I would like to invoke the various incidents from cases like Ukraine, Sudan, the Odisha train disaster. During the Odisha train disaster a few months back, we saw how Prime Minister Narendra Modi flew down to assess the situation at the crash site. He met the injured, their families. Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav coordinated the entire response. He stayed at the site, in fact, till it was cleared. NDRF teams were actively engaged in the rescue operation at that time during the Sudan crisis. We saw how India had launched the Operation Kaveri to address the situation of 3,000 Indians stuck in Sudan during clashes between the army and the paramilitary forces there. The PM Modi even then chaired high-level meetings, directed officials to devise a contingency plan for the safe evacuation of Indians stuck in Sudan. Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar engaged with Saudi Arabia and UAE both to facilitate the evacuation of Indians then. You would remember Indian Air Force operated 17 flights, Navy executed 5 sorties to evacuate nearly 3,900 Indians. Even then, the Union Minister of State for External Affairs, Mr. V. Muralidharan, was deputed on the ground in Saudi Arabia to oversee these operations. A similar approach we saw in Operation Ganga when over 22,500 Indians were evacuated from Ukraine during the war. This included Indians stranded not just in Ukraine but also in Romania, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia. If you remember, PM had then deputed 4 union ministers to different locations to assist in this evacuation. Mr. Jyotiraditya Scindia was sent to Romania. Mr. Kiran Rijiju was sent to the Slovakia border. Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri was sent to the Hungary border. And General VK Singh, who was again sent to, this time to the tunnel to help in the rescue efforts, at that time he was sent to Poland. These ministers facilitated the safe passage and the smooth evacuation of Indian nationals. In short, the Modi government mantra seems that when it comes to a life of an Indian, it matters the most. Life of an Indian stuck in a tunnel in Uttarkashi, life of an Indian stuck in Afghanistan or in Ukraine. The Modi government will do its best to bring these people safely and securely back to their families. Good news finally, after 17 days and all 41 laborers who were stuck inside the Silkyara tunnel in Uttarakhand have been safely rescued. But what went behind this huge effort? Well, when the tunnel rescue efforts had hit a roadblock last week as the auger machine broke down, the resolve of the center to get these 41 laborers out safely became like a top-level mission. Prime Minister Narendra Modi decided to send in 3 top-level functionaries of the government to camp at the tunnel site, personally monitor and oversee the renewed rescue efforts. Who are these 3 officials? The Principal Secretary to the PM, Mr. P.K. Mishra, who is the country's foremost disaster management expert, former Army Chief and now Union Minister, Mr. V.K. Singh, who has handled many such crises in the past, and Union Home Secretary Ajay Bhalla, who had been playing a key role in coordinating these rescue efforts since the inception of this tragedy which happened in Uttarkashi. All 3 of them reached the Silkyara tunnel to give some vital tips to the rescuers and monitor this effort. PM Modi was in constant touch with them, as well as the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, Mr. Pushkar Dhami, who was also camping at the site. Finally, after 17 days, the 41 laborers have been rescued, all safe and well and secure, from the Silkyara tunnel on Tuesday night. Well, this was just another example of how the Modi government responds to a crisis and shows exceptional strategic thinking as well as empathy in the process. In the Silkyara tunnel rescue, right from the NDRF of the center to the state rescue agencies, the international drilling experts, the local rat mining laborers, whom most had forgotten about, all of them together played a very, very key role. Well, it was yet another example of how during any crisis or calamity, this whole of the government approach and getting into this mission mode, doing all possible help the government can to provide for a coordinated, a mission-focused strategy, all of this comes into play. Mr. Modi was in direct touch with all the stakeholders at multiple levels, even during his travel and busy schedule. A key decision, in fact, what officials say, was a landline facility set up by the BSNL with a handset given to the workers trapped inside the partially collapsed tunnel so that communication could.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Vantage. We are in Dubai for the COP28 summit. Leaders and government officials have started arriving from all over the world. Slowly, the buzz is building up. We visited the Dubai Expo City earlier today. That's where the COP28 will begin tomorrow. And I must say, it's a different sort of summit. What stands out is the level of public participation. Thousands of activists and scientists have flown in. The idea is to make the COP people-driven. On the flip side, that's a lot of flights and emissions, especially for a summit on climate change. We'll bring you all that and more in our exclusive ground report. But first, the headlines tonight. India signs a peace deal with Manipur's oldest armed group. The United National Liberation Front has agreed to give up violence. In the month of May, ethnic clashes erupted in Manipur, and since